I was just out picking some zucchinis and snap peas for the farmer's market. I thought I'd do a quick little mid-July garden tour. Got these, I'm going to set this basket down here. The beans, these are pinto beans. I don't know how they're doing. They got flowers, so maybe we'll get beans. They're pretty wild. They're covering up the nasturtium that I stuck in the end here. My onions, which I had two rows of onions started in my flats, and I can't remember which ones were bulbing onions and which ones were bunching onions. Judging by, I don't know, the size, I think these are the bunching onions, but it's really hard to tell. They're getting big anyway, so I don't think it really matters in the end. My garlic, I don't know, I've got some of these bulbils, but I don't think they're doing great. Zucchini is enormous. I actually pruned some of it back when I was picking some volunteer lettuce that went to seed. There's 3 zucchini plants in here, which is still probably too many. But they're doing good. This is a different variety than I usually do. That looks like a squash vine borer. If it's not, it really resembles one. I don't know if I can get it with my shoe when they're up on a leaf like that. Well, get away, you. I don't know if I got it, but anyway. Snap peas are growing. Looking good. Got a bunch over here. Just about taller than I am. My weird volunteer sunflower. I think that's just one of those sort of weedy ones. Gets a bunch of different flowers on it, but well, I don't know, it's got a pretty decent stalk, so it might be one from what I had planted. Here's one of my rows of celery. Not doing too great, but we'll let her go. My oregano that I planted from seed. Pretty good. Here's those other onions. This nasturtium is doing good. And then in here is some sorrel. Hiding in the shade now. Carrots, chives, volunteer tomato. Here's the thyme that I did from seed. That's actually looking nice. Here's my rosemary from seed. So cute. And the rosemary that I did a cutting from last year. I pulled out the radishes that bolted. I've got carrots in here. I really need to thin those again. But they're doing pretty good. I don't know if I'll do another row of the French breakfast radishes. Did really well. Some flour, can't remember what it is. Here's my better celery, but also starting to get shaded. I gotta get some of this purslane out of here. Cucumbers starting to climb. I'm trying to train them back up instead of out. And I do think there's a few cucumbers on there. Hard to see. Here's my sort of wild card section. Supposed to be loofah. Those died, so I put in a couple sweet peas. It's gorgeous purple. There's one down here, hasn't flowered yet. And then I put in some loofah seeds, which actually they're doing. I think there's 1, 2, and there's another one down here that's working on it. Nasturtium in here, and then this was a volunteer pumpkin something. So I thought, well, whatever, I'll leave it. There's also beans in here. My son had some pole beans, which are right here. See if those do anything, or if they just get lost. More volunteer tomatoes in my strawberry patch. Strawberries are doing pretty good, so I think the key here is to keep the deer from eating them this fall and mulching them in really good in the winter so they come back. Volunteer marigold, going to town. I've got some pots. I gotta hang these up. I don't remember what these are, but apparently the grasshoppers like them. This was some random flowers I had extra, didn't have any pots for. This one's going to go back. I have a hook in the back, so those two will go back. These were supposed to be, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember what they're called, but they were like a yellow with a very distinctive red stripe, like very like sort of circusy, Joker, clown-like. Yeah, that is not what came up. So, mosquito plant that the kids wanted when it was on sale. And an amaranth here that I believe when I put it in a pot, it was supposed to be a daisy, but apparently it migrated. Some more volunteer tomatoes that I threw in pots just to see what would happen. And the old pumpkin patch is doing pretty good. I got this soaker hoses going and I got a leak, so. But my trellis, the things are climbing. This is way further than it was last year, so I'm hopeful that I'll be getting some birdhouse gourds and some other small little, here we go, little pumpkins. So that I'm excited for this to have stuff climbing all the way over it, so hopefully that will happen. The transplanted rhubarb looks like Swiss cheese because of the grasshoppers, but what can you do? We got some weeds in there. The marigolds that I planted in the middle are starting to get pretty big. These must have been the giant ones. And there's a sunflower in there, a couple sunflowers. And then I had some, on the ends, there's these transplanted pumpkins that were volunteers. I just stuck them in. I do have a few things you could call pumpkins coming up. Those are weird. They're very long. They look kind of like zucchinis. So pretty sure they should be pumpkins, but I guess we'll find out. And the roadkill Brussels sprouts, I had no other place to put them. So I'm driving, somebody must have been driving by and like lost a couple flats, or well, a couple 4-packs of Brussels sprouts. They were all freshly watered and everything, so we rescued them from the road and threw them in here. They're looking a little rough, but they got watered today, so hopefully they'll come back. I'm on my usual mission to kill all squash vine borers, but it's sort of a daily process. But that stuff is coming along. And the corn, this is all glass gem popcorn. Every one of my holes has a corn in it. Some, actually most of them have 2. It's interesting, like these 2 rows are doing awesome. This row is a lot shorter. This one's pretty good, and then these are looking a little sad, but how nice is it to not have weeds? I can just walk right through. There is some grass and stuff in each hole, but I'm not super concerned about that. I'll probably go through and pick some of these, but I mean, my corn patch is usually a nightmare. So I am really loving the ground cover. And it's not as, I kind of thought, oh, it's going to be really ugly, but you know what? I don't think it's too bad. Watermelons. This is a Blacktail Mountain. That's a pretty short season watermelon, so I like to grow those. And these guys are actually trying to escape. I can't quite figure out why they never grow where there's space. They always want to grow out, either under the fence or out into the alley here. I mean, there's a bit of room. They could grow into the corn if they wanted, but we'll see. Got a bunch of sunflowers. Here's another one of the roadkill Brussels sprouts. Got sunflowers on the end of everything. They're just starting to do good. Here, this one, it's got a flower on it. Do you think I can remember what all these are? Of course not. And I don't know that I even kept track. I think I know what I planted, so I could maybe identify once they get flowers on them. But here are the sun and moon and stars, something like that. Watermelons, and they got the little dots all over the leaves, and then they should have the little dots on the watermelons, but I don't see any fruit on here yet. So, but there's flowers, so hopefully it'll come. A couple extra Brussels sprouts that I moved. I think I had a couple in those holes, so I moved them out of there. Eventually those are going to be tall enough. I think they'll be all right, kind of mixed in here. These are Minnesota midget, cantaloupes, muskmelon, Brussels sprouts, were looking a little sad when I transplanted them, but they are doing good. They're getting kind of big. And then tomatoes. On this side, I have the Brandywine. Other side, I have San Marzano. I really need to weed right here. I should have put my weed cloth a little further. I could probably put like another piece in there, but I did not prune this year, or I have not pruned this year. I probably could. Ugh, you see all those grasshoppers, annoying. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I'd like to prune to keep the airflow a little bit, but it's hard to get in there. There's some cheese weed in here that I need to get rid of. But they are setting fruit. There's some in there. And everything's looking pretty good. I've had like drift or, herbicide damage before. But this year it seems like there's a little bit of weird stuff, but it isn't like it was. So maybe if it was in the soil, maybe that's going away, or maybe it was drift. We have beans this year, so they can't use broadleaf herbicides, which would affect all these plants. But there's another volunteer marigold here, but I don't know how well it's going to do. Ugh, all that is like frass from the grasshoppers. Gross. Potatoes. My one row flowered and then this row did not. I don't know if it's because of all the grasshoppers or what. But I think they're pigweed doing okay. There's a cat hiding in the shade. And more sunflowers, and then a volunteer sunflower and a volunteer hollyhock, because they go everywhere. If you want big flowers that seed themselves, get some hollyhocks. They're fun. And then these were the potatoes that had early blight. I got, 1 meal's worth of little new potatoes, but don't think I'm going to do that anymore. I'm going to keep them in the ground from now on. Flowers are doing pretty good. I'm really excited about the blazing star. It was just one spike last year, and now it's a whole bunch. Volunteer hollyhocks, my hardy geranium, and finally butterfly weed. I've been trying to plant butterfly weed forever, and I finally have some. Hopefully that's going to spread like crazy. Frankly, if the flowers spread, I really don't care. I am a little bit over these guys. This is goldenrod, but I love these Shasta daisies. My zinnia situation is a little bit dire this year. I've got lots of these little guys in places, but there's so many weeds in here, and well, not even so much weeds, but hollyhocks, volunteer hollyhocks. They're everywhere. All that is hollyhock. So I'm super excited that my lavender flowered this year. I had pulled out the rudbeckia last year. So here's the mystery. Last year I had 4 rudbeckia, but they were all teeny tiny little flowers, and they were giant bushes. It took up this whole thing. So I'm like, this spring I'm going to pull out 3 of them, plant them somewhere else, because you couldn't see the bee balm, you couldn't see anything. And I know I swear there's a pincushion flower in here somewhere, and I wanted echinacea. Who knows if I got it in here or not. And there's volunteer dill. But anyway, so this year, pull those out, leave one, and this is what I end up with. This is not the same rudbeckia that I planted last year, or it isn't the same that came up, the like big bushy tiny flower rudbeckia. Now all of a sudden I've got real, and I love these. If all 4 of them looked like that, I would have kept them, but those big bushy things, I don't know. But the places that I transplanted to, nothing's come up, so who knows. I do have some volunteer violets or whatever, Johnny jump ups in here. I believe this is something I planted, just getting around. Oh, here it is, Campanula. I think that's something I planted. There's this one and this one. I think those might be the African daisies. I don't know, but we'll find out, I guess. More zinnias. There's a pot of random flowers, including a volunteer. Tomato. Cosmos that I planted from seed, or started from seed. This is the hyssop that came back. It's very smelly. I don't know, is this something I planted? It's hard to tell. And like this, is this part of that? That might be part of that guy spreading. There are some weeds. Like this. I don't know that that's something I planted, but it looks like it's gonna have a flower, so it'll stay. There are some thistles in here, but it's really hard to get in here now and pick stuff out because I can't quite tell what's what. So this is the pollinator garden. It's a little wild. My transplanted clematis is doing great. I'm excited for that. It was looking pretty sad last year. I'm surprised that this hollyhock isn't doing more because this was as big as that one last year, and this is the black one. Hollyhock, 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 hollyhock. They're everywhere, I tell you. Volunteer sunflower. And then the poor milkweed has to grow in the aisle here because I put the ground cover on and it can't get out. And because I'm a glutton for punishment, I actually added some hollyhocks this year because there were some like kind of ruffly ones. So maybe by next year they'll have flowers. There was something in here. Where did I see it? Right here. Is this a thing or is this just these two? I don't know what those are, but I feel like those are something. But it's all an experiment. Anyway, if it has flowers, I'm good with it. But yeah, that is the mid-July check-in. I gotta get this stuff inside before it gets too hot. At the farmer's market today, my weeping pussy willow is kind of sad. I got the bag on here now, so keep it watered. I don't know if that's why the leaves kind of fried. Didn't have any flowers on our apples this year, I think because of the weird spring. But things are going. We haven't had a whole lot of rain, so I water a lot. I've been watering with the wand instead of the sprinkler. Takes a little bit of time, but I think it's working well. So anyway, hope your gardens are looking good.